Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Liz and this is Let's Get Lizicle, where we do everything card making. And today is my holiday card challenge, so it's hashtag HCHJ2025, which stands for Holiday Card Hijinks 2025, and we are doing the prompt Nutcracker today. I've had this idea in my head for quite a while, ever since I bought this adorable set from Mama Elephant, which is called the Nutcracker. And it's just a bunch of cute images. There's 3 different soldiers in them. There's a fairy, the Mouse King, and I believe the character's name is Clara, if I'm not mistaken, for the little girl. And there's like a couple of little sentiments that go with it. But it's an adorable set, and I absolutely loved the Nutcrackers, so I had to have them. And the Mouse King is super adorable. This is the first time I'm coloring him for this video, and he's super cute. I feel like I could add him to like other like magical cards, maybe with the wizard set or something, which would be nice. I haven't played with that one yet either, but we'll be doing that one soon because I'm super excited to make some trading cards with them. But today I'm going to be using my Arched 3D box card file. This is a cut file available in my Etsy shop, and it makes this 3D box card. I have a couple of different designs. These types of cut files and my slimline envelope cut files do best in my Etsy shop, so I'm going to leave them for now because I haven't gotten around to moving them to my website, but eventually these will make it over to my website. But for now, I'll link my Etsy shop down below. It's only $5 for the cut file, and you get all of the base pieces that we're assembling now and the matte layers that go with them. The only difference between like these and like ones that you would die cut out is you don't get like that stitching detail, but I don't mind. I don't always like love the stitching detail on dies, so I think it's good to have the plain option. And again, it's only $5, so it's pretty cheap compared to like spending $30-40 on like die sets for these. I like to design these types of cards because it's fun for me. It's kind of like very technical and mathematical, and I'm like very much into doing patterns and stuff like that. So this works. But anyway, for the backgrounds, I'm just coloring this kind of like closed curtain drapes, almost like it's maybe a kid's play for a school or something, and they don't have a lot of like budget for scenery and props and stuff, so they would just have like the play going on with a red drape background. You know, these are the classic big velvet drapes. But anyway, I just kind of drew on some dark red lines, and then I kind of faded it out from there. So we start with the dark red lines, go to a like mid-tone red, and then go to a lighter red, and then it kind of mimics doing the folds in the drapes. Let me know if this actually looks like drapes. I feel like I did okay. I'm gonna add some white highlights here, which I don't love. I probably added just way too many. I should have done maybe a couple instead of as many as I did. If I was to do this card again, I'd probably just leave them out altogether, or maybe take colorless blender marker and try to blend some of the color out just to give it a bit of a highlight. But I think the background looks better like this. There's many different ways you can do the background. You could definitely create like a magical scenery to go with it. You could do the drapes like this. You could just throw in a pattern paper if you want to. I think this was the quickest and easiest method, but I, again, do not love these white lines. As I'm watching this again, I'm definitely not liking them. We are going to go over them with the lightest red again once it's dried, just to tone it back a bit. But if I was to do this card again, I would definitely make those drapes without the white highlights. But anyway, we're going to get into coloring now. Coloring is probably just the majority of this video, or a good portion of it anyway. The assembly of the card doesn't take very long. The coloring definitely took me quite a while, just because there's a lot of images. Not that the images are big or anything, but it just took a bit, and then I added to it. Again, I'll explain in a bit. You'll see what I mean. But for now, we're starting with these 4 images. I am going to stamp them with VersaFine Clair ink today because it is so hot in here that the dye ink will not dry very fast anyway. it'll probably take a hot minute and it's gonna smudge, and I wanted to work on this like right away. So I am stamping with pigment and then heat embossing with clear on top of it just to seal in that color. I did have one problem with the Sugar Plum Fairy. I either missed a spot with the powder or it didn't melt properly because the arm got smudged a bit, but otherwise, like, this is the safest way to color when you want to do it right away and you're worried about your ink smudging. You can just seal it in with the clear embossing powder. You can either use the pigment ink, which stays wet a bit longer than a dye ink, or you can use a dye ink and then a clear embossing ink on top. So you just want to make sure you use like a stamp positioner where you're just stamping directly on the lines. Normally I do it where I do the stamping in the dye and then stamp over with the clear, but I figured let's skip a step and let's use the pigment ink. I have had this ink for years and I don't use it very often, but it's still good. I've never had to re-ink it, and it is good for watercoloring, which I will eventually get into. I have the supplies for it, but I just haven't done it. That'll be another video of things not to buy anymore, but that's also coming next month, so I think, or the month after. I'm trying to plan my next couple of months for videos because I had planned basically up to this month and then nothing from now until November when I start my Christmas card series. So we're just trying to get my ideas onto paper. Like, I have lists everywhere. I have lists in books. I have lists of cards I want to make in my phone. I have Halloween, Christmas, whatever. I just have a bunch of different ones, a bunch of different lists. So I need to pick from them and just put them into a date on the calendar. But anyway, when I was coloring the Mouse King, I colored him gray. I always color mice gray. I don't know why. They do come in different colors, but I always do them in gray. And I wanted to do the fur on his coat also in like a lighter gray, but it was just like blending in a little bit too much because I was kind of using the same colors as the shadows on the white and then trying to blend that out. But again, it was blending in way too much because it was too much of the same color. So what I did was I took the lightest shade of purple that I used on the little girl's outfit and her bow, and I kind of did like almost like a wash over the gray just to add a bit of a purple tinge to it, so it made it look different than the fur on the mouse. And that's one of the beautiful things about alcohol markers is they kind of work like watercolors where you can layer them up and put like different colors on top of other colors and make a new color out of it, just because they are translucent in their properties. So like if you just like continue layering up the same marker, it's just going to build up the color of that marker. But if you put down like a gray and then put down a yellow, that yellow is going to be tinted with the gray, and then that will act as like a shadow kind of thing, if that makes sense. I recently watched a video where an artist just did all gray shadows on her art piece, and then she just kind of colored over everything with a solid color, which it looked nice. Gray's not necessarily the best option for shadows, which is why I don't always do that. I do it sometimes, but not very often. So I usually like just to use two different shades of the one color. I'll do a darker one and a lighter one and then blend them together. I'm not one of those people that do 3 to 5 different colors for shading. That's just not me. I don't want to spend hours and hours coloring these images. I want to put the card together. So I, again, use a max of 3 sometimes, but usually it's only 2. Like on the background for this, I used 3, but I wanted a little bit more depth and dimension on those drapes because it is like a very plain background, but the rest of the images is just 2 colors. So here I am assembling the box. I've done videos for this before, so maybe I'll link the playlist to that after at the end of this video, and then you can kind of see more of the like assembly, but I usually assemble the left side first, fold everything over and add the glue, and then put the right side over the flaps that they get glued to, just to make it a little bit even. And then I usually work the card back and forth so that it, you know, stays into position, and you're just kind of like working that paper into where you want it to sit. And I just do that as many times as possible throughout the process, just to make it, again, like just sit proper and that the folds are a bit more smooth. So I do have the dies for the set, so I'm going to cut it out using the dies. I don't remember why I bought these. Normally I don't, because I have a scan and cut, but at the same time, I do like using dies. And sometimes if I know I'm going to be using a stamp set like fairly often, I'll opt in for dies rather than my scan and cut, which doesn't make sense because the scan and cut is meant to cut out a ton of images. But I just feel like if I'm gonna quickly cut things out, I just want to be able to do it quickly. And if I'm going to be doing it often, then I just, again, want to have the dies so that I can just do it quickly. I don't have to set up my machine or anything. Again, to each their own. And again, I have both the scan and cut and I have dies for things. So usually I'll buy dies if there's pieces on the inside of the image that need to be cut out, or like sections between the arm and the body or stuff like that, just because it helps with that. The scan and cut doesn't do those types of things. So sometimes I'll buy the dies and sometimes I won't. It just depends on my mood, to be honest. Sometimes I wish I had the dies, and then sometimes I don't use them and I use my scan and cut. So it just depends on the day, the mood, the project, the whatever. I do go back and forth. But anyway, I added all my highlights and glitter coloring to my images before I glued them to the card, just because it'll be so much easier. This does fold flat, but it's, again, easier to do the things before you attach it. Like, I forgot to put my stamped logo on there. I always forget to do that because I, again, like to assemble the card. So I usually stamp it on the side panel because I don't want to stamp it on the back, because that's where you write your message. And I don't want to take up that space. So normally I'll stamp it on the left or right side panel. It depends on what side I'm folding it to. I'll fold it to the opposite side to where I put my stamp. So this one well, I guess I fold it to the same. This one is going to be folded to the left. So I've like stamped it on that left side so that it gets covered when it's in like the little poly bag I put it in. And then I decided that once I set up my scene here, I wanted another sugar plum fairy on the left side to help fill in some space, but I wanted it to be mirrored, so I'm going to be doing some mirror stamping. This took me 3 passes, I think, and I'm using my waffle flower grip mat to do that. I'm using the pigment ink to do it again. I think I had better results when I used the dye ink in the video that I did for this. I'll link the video at the end of this video as well. But it still turned out nice. It's still not 100% to like just straight up stamping on a piece of paper. The lines are like slightly thicker. But because I think I'm using a pigment ink and embossing, they're just as clear. But it's definitely easier for me to do it with the dye ink, I think, on the grip mat. I cut out the coloring. I did the exact same as the other one, except I did it in the lighter purples just to bring more lighter purple into the scene, because I had a lot of the darker purple between the Mouse King and the other Sugar Plum Fairy, so I decided to use the lighter purple that I used on the little girl just to bring that. Then I'm holding it up to the light and putting the dye on the back, because obviously we can't mirror the dye. So you just want to cut it from the back instead of the front. And in order to do that, either take it up to a window or take it up to the light that you use in your room and line it up that way. You could also probably use the cutout portion to help line it up as well from the previous one. Just put that over top and then hold it up to the light and then position it and then slide the dye into that area. Either way works. I just like to skip that step because it's just an extra step that's not necessary, but if that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. So this helped fill in that left side. I am going to take the little girl off and put a sentiment strip on there. I didn't do the side mats because I didn't feel like they were necessary and I didn't know what I was going to do with them, so I left those off. But I did cut them out just because it's part of the layer. And this one white strip here I will glue onto the front so I can stamp my sentiment. And I'm just going to use the sentiment from another Mama Elephant set. I think it's called Mini Holiday Messages or Holiday Messages or something like that. I'll link everything in the description down below. But it says believe in the magic of Christmas because I feel like this movie or play or ballet or whatever way you want to watch it is very like magical. So I thought that that was a very fitting sentiment and decided to add that. So I'll glue that back onto the front after I stamp it. I'm going to use this, I think it's grape jelly from Lawn Fawn, just to bring in that purple again, but it's more of a, like a mid-tone purple, so it's in between all these colors. And I end up adding a little bit of more sparkle off screen. You might see it in the final photos, but I add a little bit of glitter to the soldiers, like the bauble on the top and the one on the front of his hat, the Mouse King's crown, and I added a couple of dots on the bottom of the sentiment strip just to give it a little bit of extra sparkle. I'm just showing you here how it fits into an envelope and then gluing on the back panel. This is an A2 size envelope. This all folds down to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. But that's pretty much our card for today, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and let me know your thoughts. And I will be back again next week for another video. So until then, I hope you guys have a great weekend and stay safe. Bye.